Okay, guys, I may or may not be like 2 months late to a topic that most of my viewers don't even know about in the first place, but look, here I am, okay? If you guys don't know, Evermore Park was a theme park in Utah that many touted to be like Dungeons and Dragons in real life. And it kind of got close. It was a fantasy town that you could visit where you could interact with characters, get quests, achieve objectives, and see dramatic tableaus. And you know what? It was kind of interesting. I was interested in going myself, but unfortunately, I will now never have the opportunity as 2 months ago, Evermore Park closed. Utah News flew in the choppers to observe the empty, abandoned theme park, and I thought in that moment, I need to talk about this. And now 2 months later, here I am. Jenny Nicholson has already made a 4-hour-long documentary documenting so many of the problems with Evermore. And I'm going to be using that video, a lot of the information that I gathered myself, as well as some other stuff, to talk about Evermore Park because it really was D&D in real life. A D&D horror story that was. Evermore emulated so many of the problems that I see in so many TTRPG games. I honestly think it's kind of fascinating how one-to-one some of these things are. And a lot of these problems aren't problems I get to talk about often. So today, we're going to be stretching logic just a little bit to connect this dead Utah theme park to our failing tabletop role-playing games to see if we can fix ourselves and learn from the failures of Evermore. Without further ado, guys, let's get started. All right, first up, let's just start with something I talk about all the time, and that is agency. Evermore touted itself as an adventure park, where you go in and you can experience this world of play. And that's not really the case. Like, you can talk to the characters, yeah, but it's not like you're going in there to fight monsters, because how would they even do that? This is like a weird Renaissance fair with a lot more role-playing, and for some people, that can be really cool. But, as Jenny Nicholson extensively covered, it never felt like you could actually do anything. So many of the quests just felt like ridiculous random crap that you do, like doing a little dance for gold, and then you use the gold for some other quests maybe, not much else. I mean, it just felt like you were doing a bunch of chores, and yeah, that's Evermore. A bunch of semi-fantastical chores in a largely unfinished medieval town with some improv actors running around. No wonder this park failed. But when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, agency is also a problem, which is kind of silly considering we don't have nearly the problems that Evermore does. Our D&D games take place in our imagination. We don't need to hire improv actors. We don't need those improv actors to randomly come up with good quests to entertain the guests, and we certainly don't need to deal with guests mutilating each other because they want to fight monsters. Because again, all in the brain, right? But DMs all the time struggle with giving players agency. I myself have been struggling with this recently. If you don't know, I've been running an actual play, which again is different from a home game in that I'm running a show and there are things I need to worry about that most DMs don't. But in that show, I have a deadline, right? I only have so many hours. And that means I need to sometimes rush my players through, and that can sometimes make it feel like their agency is being taken away. It's been a problem that I've seen in myself, and a problem I've been trying to resolve just by making the show longer, frankly. But in the end, this most recent episode that I recorded had a lot more player agency. One of the players made a big, out of left field, crazy decision, and it shifted the session and the story, and it was amazing. Like, I was thrilled the whole time. Some people see player agency almost like an obstacle that needs to be overcome. And yeah, sometimes players use their agency to frankly ruin the game for other players and the DM. But don't let those people dissuade you. Allowing players to sometimes do crazy stuff can be amazing. And yeah, a lot of the session went off the rails. The last hour and a half of that game was dedicated to that one player's decision and the aftermath of it, but it was amazing. The other players had fun, and I had a great time. And frankly, the stuff that I missed out on is not the end of the world by any means. I can just do it next session, right? I do hate it when people use player agency as a bludgeoning tool to force DMs to do whatever they want. I don't like that. But at the same time, Railroading your players and taking away all their agency is also bad. Agency is fun. Cause and effect is cool. And having those effects be visible is coolest. A big problem why Evermore doesn't work is that it doesn't feel like you actually do anything. You don't affect anybody. So what's the point? But in your D&D games, you don't need to deal with Evermore's resource problem. All you need to do is show your players that their actions matter, and they're going to be so much more engaged. And trust me, you will be too. So, I think a lot of D&D YouTubers, including myself, don't talk about this a lot, because I think a lot of D&D YouTubers play D&D somewhat similarly. I think a lot of D&D YouTubers like dramatic tableaus, and I do too, alright? I love drama. You're gonna see that a lot in the 10th Tomb or any actual play that I run. But too much drama can absolutely make someone uncomfortable. Just like how too much comedy could be very annoying at a D&D table. You need to find the right tone. And that is the next problem. Evermore had a tone issue. Evermore was way too dramatic. Remember, this is supposed to be a theme park that like Utah families run into, and some of these tableaus are just unbelievable. I didn't realize how bad it was until I watched Jenny Nicholson's video, but I mean, some of the footage that she shows me, I can't even get through it because I feel such secondhand embarrassment because I'm thinking about like little Boy Scout Timmy who's going to Evermore Park with his family and needs to watch this witch crying her eyes out because she's about to be brutally executed. Like, I don't know if 8-year-old Timmy wants to see that, man. Just like my 2 cents on the matter. Now, I don't think you're playing with 8-year-olds, but there are definitely times where too much drama can absolutely make someone uncomfortable. Now, I love drama, but my players know that. It's a session 0 thing. You know, you go in and you tell your people, hey, here's what the tone of the campaign is going to be. But I think a lot of people struggle with that. Like, so many people say something along the lines of, oh, you know, we do some seriousness, some comedy. Nuh-uh, don't do that vague crap, okay? Tell people straight up. Like, what is the tone of this campaign like? Because if you catch them off guard, God, it is so awkward, as can be seen in Evermore countless times. Too much drama, too much comedy, too little of either. It's whatever works at your table. I mean, maybe your table is as dramatic as the tableaus in Evermore. I mean, mine certainly can be. But again, I clarify that. I get people ready. Evermore does not do that at all. These characters are bawling their eyes out at the drop of a hat for extremely dramatic things that most Utah families are probably not prepared for. But luckily, you don't need to deal with all Utah families. You can prepare your, 3 to 5 players for whatever you throw at them. Just make sure to actually remember to prepare, because if you don't, it gets awkward, man. Speaking of things that Evermore didn't do, priorities. I caught on to this pretty quickly. If you're unaware, Ginny D, big old D&D YouTuber, she went to Evermore Park, and she was actually my first introduction to Evermore Park years and years ago. And after her video, I was kind of tempted to go because she had a great time. I watched some behind-the-scenes videos of the park's construction because I was kind of curious, and there were some things that really concerned me. Like, there was a bit where they talked about shipping in authentic stone from medieval Europe and, like, actual glass panes and stuff, and having gravestones that are apparently haunted shipped in from abroad. And I'm like, bro, no, why? Ginny talked in her video about how the park might close because they just don't have that much money, or at least she doesn't think they have that much money. And obviously, like, at the time, Ginny was just a visitor. She didn't have insider knowledge or anything, and neither did I. But, like, I took her word for it. And I was watching these behind-the-scenes videos just blown away because, like, what are these priorities, man? If you're spending thousands upon thousands of dollars to get all this authentic crap, it's stupid. That's dumb. You know, they're bragging about it like it's a point of pride that makes them better and more authentic than other theme parks. But those kind of luxury things are not things you do when you're a brand new theme park. For God's sakes, so many of these buildings aren't even finished, presumably because they didn't have the funds to pay off the construction company. If you save money on your stupid authentic rocks, you might have been able to do that. Now, obviously, we are not moving thousands of dollars worth of stone in our D&D games. At least I hope we aren't. But I do think a lot of DMs have priority problems, including myself. Maybe not with money, but with time. Look, you only have so much time in a week to prep your session, especially if you do week to week. And that means you gotta prioritize things. Like, there are parts of my world I'd really love to flesh out. I adore the Umbral Coast. It's the setting for Shadow over Karakonos and the 10th Tomb. I think it's a great setting, but I can't just spend all my time prepping there. My players go to other places, and those places I also really like, but sometimes I can forget I'm supposed to actually work on those locations. Another big priority problem we'll tie back to Evermore is structural. Apparently, when you enter in Evermore, you see a lot of unfinished crap, as a lot of the cool stuff for people to actually do is way in the back of the park. And while I'm sure there are reasons for that, I don't know how many of those reasons are going to justify how stupid that is. Why would you put the cool stuff in the back? Because your first impression when you walk into the park are some cool fantasy buildings and a lot of exposed wiring. I didn't know this until I saw Jenny Nicholson's video. I didn't realize how bad this aspect was. The structure of this park is crazy. I assumed a lot of the unfinished buildings would be tucked away, but apparently they're sprinkled throughout the park. Like, why? Again, I'm sure there are reasons. I'm sure there's construction things I just didn't understand, or, stuff with the contractors that I don't get. But again, if I were running a theme park like this, I do my best to centralize the good stuff at the front so that the people's good impression would be their first impression. And that goes for D&D campaigns too. When I talk to DMs who are wanting to run their next campaign, especially new DMs, so often they will give me the pitch and then they'll skip to the end, like what they want for the end of their epic multi-year saga. And that's cool, that's awesome. But first and foremost, you need to develop your beginning, your first impression. You're not gonna get to the end of this saga if your first impression is ass, right? Again, priorities. Not only should you spend your time wisely, you need to spend your time wisely on the right things. Like I said earlier, nothing wrong with getting hyped about the things that you love, the ending to your saga, but just focus on what you're doing right now first and foremost. Prioritize that, or your saga is going to be left perpetually unfinished. Alright, next up, and I originally found out about this when I was Googling the park post Ginny D video, but Evermore was supposed to be a lot more. It was originally announced as like a new Disneyland in Utah, which is crazy, by the way. Opening up a new Disneyland in this modern era is no freaking joke in terms of cash. And obviously, they needed to downgrade those plans, and frankly, good. I didn't realize how much and how often they downgraded those plans. Thank you, Jenny Nicholson, for your research on that topic. Because yeah, they needed to reframe their plans over and over again because Evermore was far too ambitious. And this is something that I think a lot of DMs, especially new DMs, struggle with. Something I struggled with. I run a lot of multi-year long campaigns. And this is awesome. This is fun. I love doing these multi-year long campaigns. I love tying these story threads together and doing these elaborate plots with my good friends. It's great. But I also have developed a keen appreciation for short campaigns. The 10th Tomb is only going to be at max like 6 sessions. No more than that. It doesn't need to be some epic multi-year saga. I don't think I could do that. Especially with these people. We're busy after all. It's okay to temper your expectations for yourself. Evermore tried so much but accomplished so little. They didn't use their resources properly, going back to the whole priorities thing, but also their ambitions were just totally misplaced. Like, they spent tons of money for some reason suing Taylor Swift. I mean, that's an ambition that didn't go anywhere, and I don't think any of you guys need to worry about that. But yeah, I do think a lot of DMs struggle with being too ambitious, with setting false expectations for themselves, with feeling like they need to do more than they can. There's nothing wrong with working in your means, with doing what you can with what you have. Short campaigns are fun. One-shots are awesome. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be better. There's nothing wrong with wanting to do character voices or wanting dramatic tableaus for your player characters. Those are cool and awesome. but just be realistic with yourself. Don't stress yourself out trying to do too much with too little. You'll grow, you'll get better, but that takes time, and it takes practice, and most importantly, takes patience. Okay, final point. And this is a point I'm going to draw from both Jenny and Ginny, two people with very similar names. Hope none of you got confused. But Ginny D had fun at Evermore Park those years ago. I mean, so much fun I wanted to go. It was infectious. And you know what? I believe her. Like, I don't think she was comped or anything like that. She went, she had fun for a lot of reasons. She went during what many people say was Evermore's best year, when they had the gameplay down, the improv was great, costumes were great, they actually had like physical maps and stuff to hand out. By all intents and purposes, the staff and the audience say that that was a good time to be in Evermore, and that's when Ginny went to Evermore. She went during a time where a lot of people were role-playing. She went with really good friends that were willing to interact with her on that same level. She went in cosplay, which I'm sure helped with the immersion. Overall, she set herself up to have a great time, and Evermore was set up at the time to give her a great time, and therefore, she had fun. But I found out about Jenny Nicholson's video from Ginny D. She went out and said that Evermore had a ton of problems even if she had a great time, because the broken clock can be right, but it doesn't excuse all the times it's wrong. Evermore was fun. It had its moments, but that doesn't excuse all of the crap that wasn't fun. The lack of things for people to do, the crappy way it treated its employees, allegedly. Do I even need to say that? Like, the company's dissolved at this point? Anyway, look, there are a ton of things I didn't talk about in this video, but Evermore had its problems. 4 hours of freaking problems, apparently. And that sucks. That's why it closed. What does this have to do with D&D? Well, I read horror stories, right, for a living. Do you have any idea how many times I've heard, like, well, the campaign was fun most of the time, or, well, the DM was bad, but they had their moments, and yeah, that's great. But again, broken clocks, twice a day, all that crap, that applies to D&D too. I'm not saying you need to ditch a campaign at the drop of a hat, or cancel everything just because your DM made a single mistake. God, no, that's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that if issues start to crop up, you can't use a handful of good experiences to excuse them. Hell, I mean, so many times I'll see a campaign with big issues, but issues that aren't really isolated to the D&D game. They're small, personal things that happen just every once in a while. But those things are enough where I would leave a campaign, absolutely. The broken clock fallacy is very much a thing in the tabletop role-playing game world. I think a lot of people stay in games way longer than they should just because it was fun at one point, or because of that one awesome moment. You want to get back to that moment so bad, but there are times where it's just too late, and you should learn when to move on. And Evermore was that. Yeah, it had its good moments. It had its fans. But for most people, it was just not any fun. And that's why it's dead. Oof, I want to talk about Evermore Park since like November, when Jenny Nicholson released her video and I found out so much more about its problems. But now that it's actually closed for good, I figured I might as well make this a sort of an obituary to a park I wanted to go to, but never got the opportunity. Ah, well, I heard some people are thinking of reopening it. Maybe I'll go then. But in any case, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Tabletop Tavern Tips. We are on the Sunday slot for a little bit here while the 10th Tomb is running. Don't worry, we'll be returning to Wednesday right as that wraps up. But hey, speaking of, if you guys enjoyed this, you might like the 10th Tomb. It's our D&D Actual play. It's linked in the cards. But hey, speaking of, if you guys enjoyed this, you might enjoy that 10th Tomb series. It's our D&D Actual play. It's linked in the cards. But before you go, please leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to Crispy's Tavern so you don't miss any of our content. And finally, if you want to leave your own tips or thoughts, go down in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment Nevermore to let me know you made it to the end of the video. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell. Nevermore, that was pretty clever. I'm like really happy with that. I came up with that at the drop of a hat, bro. So smart. Why don't I have